today's been really tough. This is my bench right here. Gonna be sleeping on tonight, so.
This is Mike Black, the millionaire who went homeless, with the goal to make $1 million from nothing in only 12 months.
Spoiler alert, Mike Black didn't achieve his goal of $1 million starting over, despite all these grind hustlepreneurs pretending that he did, or somehow trying to spin the story as if he succeeded, when in actuality, he proved the exact opposite. Now, this story of Mike Black has been shared a lot recently, getting 36.4 million views by this guy, Eddie Chang, who says, look at this guy. He's a millionaire who went homeless as a social experiment. His goal proved that anyone can make $1 million in just 12 months with just a phone. This is the story of Mike Black and what happened next. Now, believe it or not, Mike Black will be coming on this show today, okay? #1 journalist in the void, and it's not even close. But we're going to be confronting him about some of these claims, which is pretty extreme. He's also, twist, kind of upset with this guy for clickbaiting him because he's getting a lot of hate online right now because this guy said he went homeless as a social experiment. He says that's not true. He says, no, I went homeless a few years ago during COVID to try to encourage business owners that it can be done. You could start over. It's all about your mindset. But I think it's important and worth talking about the actual thing that happened, what he set out to do, and why he ended up proving the opposite. I think he learned all the wrong lessons. But let's go to where it all started, okay? Mike Black is an entrepreneur who, during COVID, decides, okay, I'm going to start it all over. He makes all these rules for how he's going to make $1 million in 1 year. In fact, maybe we should just play the first video he made to kind of introduce this whole thing.
I'm Mike Black, and starting July 10th, I'm leaving behind my 7-figure business, putting all my belongings in storage. I'm draining my bank account to $0, and I won't even have a place to live. I'm cutting off my entire network, my friends, my family, my mentors, all my connections, and I'm starting from absolutely nothing with the goal of going from 0 to $1 million in 12 months.
So that's the original pitch, but really quickly, he finds out it's way harder than he thought. Being homeless is harder than he thought. Starting a business from zero is harder than he thought. Getting a house is harder than he thought. And ultimately, if you don't want to watch the full thing, he gets a lot of lucky breaks. Like somebody just lets him stay in their RV for a while. Somebody just agrees to co-sign on the house when, he has zero credit, supposedly. So it seems like he gets a lot of lucky breaks. Even with that, though, he ends up quitting the challenge early. He can't do it. And the reason he can't is because he says, look, my dad got sick during the filming of this. And not only that, I got sick and I had some health problems. So I have to put a stop to this challenge. Many people pointed out that that is exactly the problem with these types of challenges. They assume perfect conditions when in reality, what you're trying to prove is anyone can do it. And when you talk about anyone, you're not talking about those challenges of health events happen. Not everyone has a lucky break. Not everyone finds someone that just lets them stay in their house. Maybe most importantly, not everyone can quit being homeless whenever they want to and quit this challenge of not having the money you have now. So in his announcement video for why he stopped, he basically says, yeah, I'm having some health issues, and says, look, ultimately, like, gratitude is where it's at. And he shows how much money he made in total, which we'll talk about. But if he had stopped there, I would perhaps have nothing to say. Instead, though, he goes, look, health and gratitude is important, which I think is a fine conclusion for this series. I think he could probably said something about the importance of luck, given that his whole thing was derailed by luck, bad luck. But instead, he says this.
What have you learned the most since starting this project? A lot of what's come to light for me is like what truly matters, which is health and gratitude. The other thing that I think I've confirmed a lot for myself is that at the end of the day, I don't care who you are, you're not a victim. As much as the world wants to tell you're a victim because of whatever reason, whether it's the color of your skin or your background or your situation, if you can believe in yourself and you can get your mindset right and bet on you, you can create whatever life it is that you want to create. I don't care.
I found this to be a particularly out of touch reaction to what the experience he just had. He just got knocked out of his own personal, I'm going to be a millionaire challenge in 1 year because of unforeseen random health events in his life. And then his conclusion was, it's all mindset, which I found strange. I mean, I'm all for, look, you should take ownership, right? That's fine. That's a fine message. But just saying it's mindset is weird.
If you've lost your job, you've lost your business, whatever your situation is, if someone that looks like you and is in the same situation as you has accomplished whatever you're trying to accomplish, you can do it as well. Right now, I can feel sorry for myself. Or I can go and say, you know what? I want to fix these things. I'm going to fucking own it. A lot of things about this situation suck, but I'm in control of my mindset. Everyone has bad times and goes through shit in life, but it's how you react to those things that are thrown at you.
Again, I think he's just trying to frame things in a good way, but I feel like the conclusion of his story really is being cheated by his takeaway here. Really, it was a lot of luck and then setbacks that concluded the story the way it did. It wasn't actually a lot of what his own efforts were. Now, in the end, he says that basically 11 months of work, or what is that, 10 months of work, he made $64,000 of revenue. Now, people have recycled this as if he made $64,000 of profit. Obviously, that's a far ways away from $1 million, but it's not even that good. If you actually look at it, he mentions a statistic of he made, $10,000 worth of revenue in the last month, and $5,000 of that was profit.
I mean, at this point in the project, I'm making $10,000 a month in revenue, $5,000 in profit.
So we have to ask ourselves, assuming 50% profit, his actual total revenue was more like maybe $32,000 per year, which is it's not great. I mean, look, if your goal was $1 million, buddy, you missed it. And so it's even worse than like they tried to make it sound. Now, again, why is this important? It's not that interesting that a guy missed his goal. I'm not here to dunk on people who missed their goal. It's that this is being the story is being laundered by hustlepreneurs to then try to make it sound like he actually succeeded in some way, which I found very strange. This video right here, I hate the new YouTube format. Okay, if you can see this over here, millionaire goes homeless. Why is it on the side? I don't know why it's on the side. This is so annoying. 8 million views, though, is the point. 2 years ago, 8 million views. His story goes viral. And then again, with this Eddie Chang guy, 35 million views on the same story. And they make it sound like, in the clickbait of it, it's like, prove that anyone can make $1 million in just 12 months with just a phone. And they kind of bury the headline, which is, he failed. And they try to make it sound like he didn't fail. They said he had to cut things short. He made $65K. Not true. A far cry from $1 million, but still a massive feat from someone starting from zero. True achievement, building a viable business in weeks, overcoming bad odds, touching lives. Money comes and goes, but the impact lasts forever. It's like, yeah, but what is the takeaway of this whole experiment? You didn't succeed. You just proved that luck and odds plays a huge role, and that maybe we shouldn't judge people who are doing worse in life just because we think, oh, that's some reflection of your moral character. Maybe it's a reflection of they get unlucky and have 2 autoimmune diseases back to back. Maybe they get unlucky and their dad has terminal cancer, right? So it's with that in mind, I'm hoping to talk to Mike. I'm hoping to get his perspective on things, ask him some questions about the challenge itself, but also press him on this overall meaning of what he's talking about. I know he's mad at Eddie Chang for making it sound like he went homeless as a social experiment, but to be honest, it's not that different than the headline this Leon Hendricks, gave. He said, millionaire goes homeless to prove anyone can make $1 million. And then this other guy said he went homeless as a social experiment. Those two things are different. They're not that different. So I'm interested in hearing what he has to say about all of that. So without further ado, here's the interview. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Mike Black. You're going viral right now for some interesting reasons. You ran a social experiment a few years ago where you were a millionaire. Is that correct?
Yeah, millionaire goes homeless to prove that anyone can make $1 million in 12 months.
Anyone can make $1 million.
That's what's going on, yeah.
People are upset. Do you understand why?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I completely understand why people are upset. I would be upset, too, if I read that headline.
what is the real story in your view?
Yeah, so in my view, I mean, this project I did, it was called the $1 Million Comeback Project. I started it July 10th, 2020. And this was like the height of COVID. I don't know if you remember how different the world was then. It was a lot of uncertainty, people losing their jobs and all this stuff. And, if you've ever seen someone that's like really successful and they tweet and they'll say like, here's what I would do if I started over. If I started over, this is exactly what I would do. Well, this project, instead of like tweeting about that, it was like, let's do this. Let's start over and let's document it and give people a framework that are actually starting over. Because I had a lot of friends, people I knew that were they're going through a lot of challenges. And I knew that if they were going through challenges, other people were going through challenges. And that meant a lot of people might be losing their job and they're going to start their first business they've ever started, or they're going to make a big life change. And this is an opportunity to show people like, hey, instead of like tweeting and being like, here's what I would do if I started over, what if I actually start over and I document it? And there was a couple of reasons for this and, the mindset I had around doing it this way. And mainly what I wanted to do is share with people a framework. Okay, here's what I'm doing during this project. And it's all unfiltered. It's not BS. It's like, this is what's happening every single day. We filmed every single day. Like it's all captured and we didn't hide anything from people. So people could see the good and the extremely bad, which that project got extremely bad. So part of it too is just like, showing people it's okay to mess up. It's okay to mess up. You got to embrace that because a lot of people, they see people that are maybe successful and they just think like, oh, it's easy for them to do it. They don't screw up at all. And that's completely not true. So wanted to kind of normalize it and embrace like, hey, you're going to screw up. Look how many times I screwed up. It's great. A lot more times than I'd like to admit during that project. But that was the purpose of the project. And, with what you're saying, can you understand why people are getting upset? The reason the answer is yes is because it's been twisted with other people's words that
it's been sensationalized. I think it's fair to say there have been two people who sort of took your story, repackaged it, went super viral with it. They both had similar headlines, not exactly the same headline. Both got 8 million views and 35 million views. Now, when I first saw this, the takeaway I had was that the reason I think it went viral is, some people saw it and they go, oh, this is so inspiring. I saw it and I said, I felt like you kind of proved how big a role luck plays in success, which sort of was the opposite of what the headline was kind of saying, which is, millionaire goes homeless to prove, anyone can do it. Anyone could be a millionaire. Ironically, and also unfortunately, you had a string of bad luck towards the end of your challenge. Your dad got terminal cancer. You got 2 autoimmune diseases. You had to stop the challenge for the sake of, prioritizing your health. But I think that raised the question in a lot of people's heads of, a lot of people don't have the luxury of, they can't stop being like not well off. And then also it kind of, in some people's view, pokes a hole in the idea. They're like, oh, anyone could do this. Well, yeah, anyone who doesn't have a dad who has terminal cancer or anyone who, has normal health struggles. Does that resonate with you?
Oh, yeah, 100%. But there's a couple things I want to address there. So I actually think the reason it's going super viral isn't because of that perspective. Even though, there's some people that might think that. I think it's going viral because there's the tweet specifically that went extremely viral. It's a headline that gets people angry. Like I would get angry if I saw that. It says something like, millionaire goes homeless as a social experiment. Like if I read that, I'd be like, what? Like, what a piece of shit. And then the second headline after that says, to prove anyone can make $1 million in just 12 months.
Yeah.
So it was like twisting. Like I would never in a million years say anyone can make $1 million in 12 months. That wasn't the point of the project. That was not what it was, but it was those 2 individuals are very good at making things go viral. And that's what we didn't do at all during the project. If you go look at the project, by the end of the project, I had like 2,300 subs because that wasn't the intention. It wasn't about like, the homelessness and people are super fixated on that because of the way it was twisted. But I completely understand why people feel the way they do. It's the headlines, crazy. And it's not what we were intending to do at all.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. I just want to make sure I get it. Cause I watched your actual video where you quit. And I was listening to you, and you had a point about gratitude and health, which I resonated with. I'm like, being grateful is huge. Health is huge. You know, I thought that was all good. And then I was kind of like, my head like cocked to the side when I hear you go like, and that's when I realized like, you know, it's basically, you kind of doubled down on the idea. Like, it's mindset. It's no matter where you are, you're not a victim. You're not this. And I was thinking, I understand the framing of you have ownership and you have to take ownership. I get you have to. But you were a victim in this story. Like, literally a victim of something completely out of your control that stopped you from doing what you wanted to do. And I think sometimes there's a survivorship bias with successful people where there are factors that play huge roles in outcomes. Like, for example, you're struggling at the beginning. Somebody luckily offers you to stay with them. Or you are looking for a house hack, and sure, you're contacting people, but basically someone takes a lot of risk basically to help you. They were going to get some upside, but it was ultimately to help you. And then you have this, so those both played huge swings. And then you have this other side, which is like the health component, which played huge swings in how you fared in the end. And I just, you know, I thought that maybe the takeaway from you was different than it was for me, and how I felt a lot of people were interpreting it. And I think maybe there's a divide in how people are interpreting it. It leads some people to think this is, you know, a heroic story. Some people think you accidentally proved the opposite of what you set out to prove. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I mean, on my end, I don't like being painted as a victim. Like I know, like that was the worst part about all this. I didn't want like sympathy for like the health and my dad, because you know it was crazy because it was, you know, the most devastating thing that ever happened to me in my entire life got, you know, filmed and documented. You know, what happened to my dad was super unfortunate. My autoimmune disease, I've had that since 2018. And I think that project, I didn't, you know, want to completely admit this, but the stress from my dad, because I was good during the project in the beginning, but then when my dad got diagnosed and I was told he was going to have, you know, 12 to 18 months, I think the stress from that just, it was bad. Like my hands, my feet, my joints, my hips, like it was just pain. And then like the chronic fatigue, like it would take me like hours to get out of bed because I was just so tired. So when I did quit the project, I know I talked about in the video, a lot of it, you know, looking back, and it's been like 3 or 4 years. So it's hard to also like kind of completely put myself in the same like headspace that I was then. But a lot of it too was like, I put so much time, energy, and effort into doing this project, and it just got completely derailed. It completely derailed. I wasn't proud of like what we were putting out. And then my health took this turn, and then I wasn't spending time with my dad. And I tried not to say this very often on camera, but like the word terminal cancer, but you know, that's what we were told. Like it was like 12 to 18 months. And, you know, I was kind of optimistic about like, hey, I can, you know, maybe there's something we can do. And the more and more people I talked to, because I was spending so much time just talking to stage 4 cancer survivors. And the more I learned, the more I was like, this is really, really bad. And that's life. That happens. And what I like about the project is I set out to do something and was super far off from the vanity metric, the financial vanity metric I set for myself. And that's what happens. There's no like, you know, hiding behind something. It's all public. And that's how everything went down. And that I'm like really happy about. People got to see what happens when life gets served. And I thought that was one of the cooler things about the project. But it does suck. Like the videos after, you know, month 4, I think it was month 4, my dad had got diagnosed. I wish I just had ended it then, but it was a lot riding on what was going on, because I had, you know, a bunch of full-time team members. And then I really, you know, I didn't want to quit, because like my dad, he was like, you can't quit. Like, and I didn't want to put that on him and be like, you know what, I'm going to end this. And then he feels super bad about that. So yeah, that's, I don't know if I ranted a little bit there. I apologize if I did, but that's pretty much kind of from my perspective. I hope that answers your question.
No, I appreciate your perspective, because ultimately what we see online is sort of a twice removed meme, which is you became a meme in this guy Leon's video. You got 8 million views with, you know, it's sort of like summarized your life in this little clickbait moment. And then Eddie Chang basically plagiarized Leon, kind of cranked up the explosiveness of the headline, and then he got 34 million views. And hearing you talk about it, I sense a little bit more self-reflection, a little bit more awareness of what's going on. And, you know, I definitely think you ended up making a great case study for empathy for what people have going on. You know, ultimately, you kind of have this external thing, which is this project. But ultimately, what's going on in your life has way more impact than, you know, like, oh, we have to, you know, grind. We have to do this. Everything's within your control. I think actually health is one of those instances where you don't have everything within your control. You can say all you want, like, oh, I'm going to research it. I'm going to solve it. So many problems are like, I'm just going to think my way through it. You can't think your way through some of those challenges. Now, I want to talk to you about the dollar amount, because this is also a thing that got, I think, was pretty misleading in some of these headlines. They say, oh, he made $65,000, but that was revenue. How much did you actually make profit? I never saw that number.
Sure. So this is hard to remember, to be totally honest. Did you go through the videos? Like, did we put that in any of the videos, like the revenue to profits? I thought we were doing that with like the money tracker.
The only thing I saw was there were 3 metrics in the last video. I saw some of them, but I didn't watch the ones like leading right up to the end. All I saw was 64,000, and then you said last month we made 10,000, profited 5,000. So if I'm doing the 50% profit, but I don't know if that was your profit margin throughout. 50% profit margin would be about 32K, something like that.
So it's really hard to tell how profitable it was. And, you know, people do get confused with that stuff. They see 64,000. That's like, okay, that's revenue. That's not profit. If I had to guess, maybe you're right. Maybe like 50% of that is profit, maybe less.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I actually think it's a case study in how hard starting over is. I mean, the one thing I think about, I'm in the $10 million studio normally. Right now I'm in the void, but you know, a lot of production value for me now is cheap because I have all these nice cameras. I've got a bunch of lights. You know, sometimes I've even said like, oh, I think I could start over and start a YouTube channel and go. And part of me thinks, yeah, I could, because I have some skills, you know, etc. But also a lot of what I rely on is all these like, I have infrastructure in my life to make my life easier. And when you completely abandon that, it's way harder than you think to just be like, I'm just going to crank it right back up. I have no problems. And then you compound, you know, health issues, things like that. I think it's interesting. Watching your story go viral was interesting because it was like a cultural moment where I think a lot of people are, you know, having a tough time. And they feel like it's basically saying like, oh, you're just not trying hard enough. That's sort of how it feels to just read a headline like that. But then I think
it sounds even worse than that. I think it's like you're not trying hard enough and you suck if you're not doing this. And like, you know, just kind of like also with the whole homeless thing, it's like taking a lot of that out of context and almost like shitting on like that group of people. It's like what is going on?
Well, do you have any final recollections on anything you'd like to sort of like square the circle on the project? Now that you're looking back multiple years later, you've had all this happen to you. Do you have any final thoughts on the project before we wrap up?
Yeah. So the only thing about all this that irks me the most, and look, I get the hate comments. People are going to leave hate comments either way, and that's fine. I like the hate comments, to be honest. But the one thing that bothers me is like I don't think people realize like the sacrifice that went into doing this project. I spent an unbelievable amount of my own money with no monetization plan. The only thing we made was a little bit of ad revenue, like peanuts compared to the amount of money I spent. And I put out a free course with no intention of upselling people. To like see this painted in such a negative light, and people are like, oh, he's doing this because he wants to, you know, I don't know, be a guru or make money from people and all this stuff. That's completely not true. And that's not what the project was. It was like, just want to help, want to give you a framework, and don't want to charge you $1 for it. So I don't know what my upside here is, other than, you know, it does feel good when people, you know, are able to achieve something pretty cool from what I've helped them with, you know, during the project or, you know, off camera. So that's the only thing that really irks me, but also like, you know, gotta love the hate comments.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I'll say is the main hate comment that like I agreed with was he just proved what he didn't set out to prove. That was the most interesting part to me. Was that side of it. But
which is great though. I love that. Like, that's so true. I've made $65,000 and it's like all this is on camera for you to watch. Like, that's great.
Great. Well, thanks for taking the time, man. I just wanted to ask you about it and see your thoughts. I think it's interesting to hear it straight from the source instead of on Twitter.